Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're jumping into a book that's been getting a lot of attention, and honestly, it really deserves it. It's Kellyanne Bradley's debut, The Ministry of Time. I found it, well, haunting, elegant, really deeply human, genuinely unlike pretty much anything I've read this year.
It really is something special, isn't it?
Yeah, it blends speculative fiction, sci-fi elements with this surprisingly mundane bureaucracy, a very quiet romance, and some sharp post-colonial commentary too.
It sounds like a strange mix on paper.
It does, but it works. So in this deep dive, we're going to unpack that premise, get into the emotional core, the deeper themes, Bradley's unique writing style, and the world building, which is quite something.
Absolutely. And I think what's remarkable is how Bradley weaves all those seemingly disparate threads together into something so cohesive and, well, unforgettable. Our goal here is really to pinpoint what makes this novel tick, why it resonates so strongly.
Okay, so let's get into the premise. The core idea is the British government has secretly developed time travel, like functional time travel.
Right, not just theoretical.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And their program involves literally plucking, real historical figures from the past, usually right before they were supposed to die.
They call them expats, which is sort of a euphemism, isn't it? Extracted person.
Yeah, it is. These expats get brought into our time for, well, the ministry says it's research or maybe rehabilitation, preservation. It's all under government control, naturally.
Naturally. Bureaucracy finds a way, even with time travel.
So each expat gets assigned a handler, a civil servant, basically, who helps them integrate. Our narrator, she's unnamed, British Cambodian, very sharp. She's one of these handlers.
Okay.
And her assignment is Commander Graham Gore. He's a 19th century Arctic explorer from the doomed Franklin expedition back in 1847.
Wow, okay. So plucked from a shipwreck.
Pretty much. 1 minute frozen shipwreck, the next, boom, modern London. And it's her job to, help him figure out this totally alien world.
What's fascinating there right off the bat is how this premise immediately sets up questions that go way beyond typical sci-fi tropes.
Yeah.
You've got the obvious fish out of water thing for Gore, sure, but it's also this huge power imbalance, isn't it? He's completely vulnerable, ripped from his time, dependent on this system.
A system he can't even begin to understand.
Exactly. And the narrator, her job is to manage him, but that means controlling him too, in a way. It adds this immediate layer of tension and complexity. It's not just, wow, the future.
Absolutely. And that leads us to the emotional core because, despite the cool sci-fi setup, this book isn't really about time travel paradoxes or flashy tech.
Not at all.
At its heart, it's about human connection. Specifically, the bond that forms between the narrator and Gore. And it forms so slowly, so tentatively.
Almost imperceptibly at first.
Yeah. It becomes this really intimate, complicated, and deeply moving relationship. But it's quiet, full of hesitation, repression, longing. You really notice every pause between words, every look across the room. It feels, incredibly real because of that.
That quietness is key. I think if we connect this to the bigger picture, the emotional core is about finding connection in these impossible circumstances.
Right.
Bradley uses that slow pacing, that focus on the nonverbal stuff, the glances, the silences, and it just ramps up the intensity. And the heart of it all, too. It's not straightforward.
Not at all. And here's where it gets really interesting, I think. Bradley uses this whole time travel thing as a springboard for some massive philosophical questions.
Yeah, it's not just background dressing.
No. You start thinking, okay, who actually owns history? What happens when people, actual human beings, become like data? How do we erase or manipulate or even weaponize the past for power now? Definitely. And the narrator's identity is crucial here. He's a woman of color working inside this cold, white, institutional government system. That perspective directly reflects those power dynamics she's questioning.
That's such an important layer because you see this parallel, right? Gore is dislocated from time, obviously, but the narrator is also dislocated, in a sense, culturally, navigating these power structures from her specific position. And it feels like in that shared displacement, that shared feeling of being out of place, something genuinely human starts to, bloom between them. It's a really powerful commentary on identity, on finding connection, even when the system tries to compartmentalize you.
And the way it's written, the prose itself is just stunning.
It really is.
Bradley's writing is sharp, it's literary, it gets lyrical when it needs to, but it's also got this incredibly dry, funny wit.
Yes. The humor catches you off guard sometimes.
Totally. And the narrator's voice is just unforgettable. sarcastic, really guarded, but so observant. And the dialogue, especially between her and Gore, it's some of the most beautifully awkward, meaningful interaction I think I've read in years.
You feel the weight in those conversations.
You really do. And the pace, it's deliberate, it's slow, which I admit might put some people off initially, but it feels so intentional. It gives space to every little gesture, every moral quandary, every flicker of emotion. It's almost as much about the silence as the speech.
And this raises an important point, doesn't it? How does that deliberate pacing actually enhance the depth instead of just slowing things down?
Right, because it could easily just drag.
But it doesn't. I think it works because it forces you, the reader, to really sit with the characters, to inhabit their internal worlds. That slow burn allows the weight of Gore's disorientation and the narrator's carefully constructed defenses to really land.
Do you feel it more intensely?
Exactly. It's subtlety doing heavy lifting. Every word, every silence builds these complex layers of meaning that you just wouldn't get with a faster, more plot-driven approach.
Okay, and then there's the ministry itself. As a piece of world building, it's fascinating and, frankly, terrifying.
Terrifying is the word.
What makes it great world building is that it doesn't feel like typical sci-fi. It feels bureaucratic, like any big modern institution you might interact with.
Faceless, logical, efficient.
And completely devoid of empathy. That's the chilling part. It's not mustache-twirling evil. It's far scarier because it's cold. It's practical. It turns people into projects, into data points, into something manageable.
Yes. That normalization of dehumanization is what's so unsettling. It's not actively malevolent, just indifferent, which feels, in some ways, worse.
Right. You feel the weight of it pressing down on the characters.
And it perfectly amplifies those core themes we talked about: power, identity, what it means to be human when a system tries to quantify you. You feel how characters get ground down by that kind of weight.
There are specific lines, too, that just stay with you. I keep thinking about, he looked at me the way one might study an eclipse, with awe and with fear of being burned.
Oh, that's a great one. So evocative.
Isn't it? And this one. I had always thought history was behind us, but it turns out it's all around us, just waiting to be collected. That idea just, wow.
It frames everything.
It really does.
Okay.
So who is this book actually for? I'd say, if you love quiet, character-driven stories, if you like sci-fi that asks big philosophical questions rather than just focusing on tech.
Or literary fiction that takes its time but delivers a huge emotional punch.
Exactly. Or, honestly, if you've ever felt sort of out of place yourself, maybe caught between cultures or eras or just expectations, I think this book will really speak to you.
I agree. Its appeal is broader than the premise might suggest because it taps into something universal about introspection, connection, unique perspectives. The highlights are definitely that original concept, the beautiful writing, the sharp dialogue,
The deep emotional core.
the clever world building, and those powerful themes: identity, history, power, love. It covers so much ground, so elegantly.
Now, just a fair warning, maybe a heads up.
Yeah,
This book isn't going to be for everyone.
true.
If you're looking for like a fast-paced sci-fi action story or a very conventional romance novel, this probably isn't it.
It demands a bit of patience.
It does. The plot is driven by thought, by mood, by emotion, much more than by external events or action sequences.
But I'd argue that the very things that might seem like drawbacks to some, the slow pace, the subtle emotional development, are actually its greatest strengths.
That's a good point.
They're what make it such a unique and profound reading experience. It asks you to engage on a different level, and the reward for that engagement is, I think, much richer.
So my final verdict, The Ministry of Time is just a bold, brilliant debut, really.
Agreed.
It's the kind of book that doesn't just tell you a story. It really holds a mirror up to time, to memory, to who we are and how we love, even across these huge divides. It's smart, it's aching, and it's absolutely unforgettable.
Nicely put.
I'm giving it a solid 9.5 out of 10. I know it's going to stay on my mind for a long, long time. So if you haven't read it, seriously, pick up a copy of The Ministry of Time.
Definitely worth your time. And maybe, as a final thought for you to mull over, consider that line again. If history isn't just behind us, but is all around us, just waiting to be collected, how does that idea change how we see our own past? And maybe more importantly, what does it imply for how we connect, how we live right here in the present?